This is the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers. Together, let's drive.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We like to call it UDSS. It's the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Man, do we ever have a lot to talk about tonight? We got a new Cowboys head coach. He came in under the veil of night on Friday night. We'll talk about that. Plus, we got to talk a little bit about Super Bowl since we have a couple of Texas high school quarterbacks who will be in it. Should be a lot of fun tonight. He is the one and only Andrew Cely, who does a fantastic job putting this prime program together.
Again, overselling it like I think we're trying to do with the Cowboys head coaching hire. All right, we got a lot to get into, so let's get right into it with what's on the show.
Here's What's on the Show, sponsored by NFM.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, especially since he isn't putting any up in the stadium. Brian Schottenheimer is now the 10th head coach in Cowboys history. We'll break down everything from analysis to fan reaction. Meanwhile, the Super Bowl matchup is set. Cowboys won't be there, but the Chiefs are going for a mostly unprecedented three-peat. And we get to know Schottenheimer a little bit more tonight with a little true or false. Joe, that's what's on the show. Now, who is on the show?
Yeah, well, we got a great show for you. We've got a couple of our favorites who are going to be joining us. The one and only Bob Sturm from The Ticket. It's going to be a Sturm Center Ultimate Dallas Sports Show tonight. And we've got our own Michelle Montaine. And you guys, we got so much to talk about tonight. Yes, claps all around, indeed. We got so much to talk about. And Bob, because I am a subscriber to the Sturm Stack, I happen to know that you were at the Mavs game when all this went down on Friday night. Yes, I'm curious about your first blush when you got the news.
Well, I just have to correct you. It was a Stars game Friday
Sorry, my
night,
bad. Yes,
but I was at a game.
Yes.
I was at the AAC. And yeah, I kind of thought we would at least see what happened in today's games to see if somebody else would get into the plot late. But, as things began to get closer and closer, and especially once Pete Carroll got hired, many signs pointed that they're going in this direction, whether we are overwhelmed or not. And they're comfortable with it. It seems like this is really what it's all about with Cowboys football at times, is the comfortable move. And they went and did it. So full steam ahead. I don't want to hold anything against Brian Schottenheimer. It would just be the process that we would question once again.
Man, that is almost exactly what I'm going to be saying tomorrow on the morning show. I mean, verbatim. Because, again, Schottenheimer seems like a fantastic fellow. He's a great guy, and I know for a fact he is well-liked in the locker room, including, by the way, by the quarterback, right? Which is really important when the quarterback makes $240 million and is the highest-paid player in the entire league. But the process was so problematic because, like you, Bob, I thought, listen, they're hesitating here. His couple of interviews finished on Wednesday. They still hadn't made a move on Friday. I'm like, okay, maybe they're going to reevaluate, but they don't. So, Michelle, when they didn't, did it strike you over the head? I mean, I know we talked about it afterward for quite a while on WFAA+, but after having a couple of days to digest it, what'd you think?
After we talked at length Friday night when the news came out, I think what was most interesting was the fact that we know he had that initial conversation that was, 4-ish, 5 hours with Schottenheimer on, what was that, Wednesday, I believe. And then the follow-up was, or maybe it was Tuesday.
Tuesday,
and then
Wednesday, yes.
Was Wednesday. So there likely weren't additional formal conversations taking place. So in that line of thinking, if they already knew by, say, Wednesday, why did Jerry wait until Friday night? And Joe, I think we know because we talked about it, for so long, but the timing and the decision to make that announcement when they did, you just have to think all of the dominoes that fell from the time that Mike McCarthy didn't return at the very, at the 11th hour of his contract expiring. And then all of the subsequent steps of the fact that Schottenheimer was the only person who had 2 interviews. They were much longer than any of the other 3 candidates' interviews. And then they wait basically 36 hours from the time they last talked to him to announce that he's their guy. Just none of it adds up to something that I think can give the fan base confidence that this is the guy that they wanted from the jump.
And listen, I'm not asking for much. I would like a plan. Can we just for one time feel like we've got a plan? I mean, Bob, is that asking too much?
No, it's not. And that's the thing is as we look at this, it really personifies the any one of 500 coaches could do this thing that Jerry said long ago, because that's the type of value he seems to put on the office. That's the type of power he gives to it. That's the type of search they have. I mean, Joe, they have every advantage in the NFL. They have more money than everybody. There's no cap on coaching or front office. You could pretty much go get the 5 best coaches in football and put them all on a super team staff you've never seen before. It could be the coaching Avengers down there if they wanted to. But if you do that, if you hire guys that are in high demand, then they make demands of you that, look, for me to be successful, for my program to be successful here, I need things to be a certain way. And we know that the moment a coach says, I need things to be a certain way to the Joneses, they're eliminated from contention for the job. I mean, this goes all the way back to Jimmy. When Jerry wanted to change terms with Jimmy back in 1994, that was the end. And ever since, they named the staff, they named the terms, they cut his legs off for power with the players. I mean, and this goes on and on and on. And that's why, again, I hope this works. I really do, because it's fun to follow a good football team. But the self-sabotage has to end at some point, I would feel.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the any of 500 coaches line, because, Bob, I think when the postscript is written about this latest era in the Jerry Jones, career, I do think that's going to end up being his Achilles heel, right? Because I think he really believes that. And I also believe the more and longer that we've been through this, that phrase, when it was uttered about Jimmy Johnson, setting into motion the events that have created this 29-year drought without having made it to a conference championship game. And I think that is the absolute root of it, and it's the Achilles heel. And because of it, I think it's born out of hubris. I also think it's born out of the inability to humble yourself, right? And listen, I do know that Jerry Jones listens to a lot of people. I know he listens. I know he asks for input from a lot of people. But at some point, you have to let that coach take the reins, and you can't undercut him, because it's a sport that is filled with alpha males. And when they see any weakness in that coach, and a lot of times that weakness is made obvious by what Jerry Jones does, and it just won't work. And unfortunately, I don't see that changing, because, again, this move feels like status quo.
I'm going to jump in here and say there's a decent chance that we'll still be in that same 7-10, 10-7. The way Cowboys fans are talking, this feels like a disaster, like we're about to walk into a 3-14 season or something potentially worse. This doesn't necessarily feel like that. Most of the issue will come down to how the roster is constructed, and a lot of it boils down to whether Schottenheimer is going to have the chance to succeed, especially with Dak regressing a little bit in terms of his mobility and how he's played recently. But if you've looked at Schottenheimer's career, he's had some bad luck with quarterback injuries. Russell Wilson, the Brett Favre back with the Jets. He was also there for the Mark Sanchez years. There was some aspect of his work that was fine when they were running the ball well and being aggressive on that side. And looking at the Cowboys, how they're presently constructed, the run game is a mess. And a lot of it has to do with the guys up front, where there are a lot of question marks. So, Bob, my question to you is, it feels like he can succeed, but is this team going to allow him?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of twofold, right? Because, yes, head coach really matters. It's a very, very important position, maybe the most important position in the National Football League, although you could argue that getting a Patrick Mahomes isn't a bad idea either.
Sure.
But the other thing is, of course, these guys are at the mercy of the tools they have in their toolbox, and that means roster construction. And so to see them sort of self-sabotage Mike McCarthy in his final year, we kind of were sadly, we were able to kind of predict the outcome, that when you go to camp without a running back, and you go to camp with one wide receiver, and you have no defensive tackles, and you're literally acquiring defensive tackles on August 15th, right. Many of them. Yep. And it just shows that your roster was kind of trash. And they made a conscious choice to sort of, kind of let things die on the vine, which honestly, you can kind of see a consistent path there, guys,
Yeah.
until they pull the trigger on the Dak contract. And so that was like a inconsistent move in 2024. The one thing that didn't make sense based on all their other moves is locking in a quarterback to the highest contract in the NFL. I'm not saying that's a bad idea because I was kind of for it, but I'm also for, if you're going to do that, now you got to do these other moves, including have an idea who your head coach is going to be. If you kind of chase your current head coach out of there, make sure you're at least thinking you're upgrading. And I don't know that they really think that in their hearts right now.
There was so much time they had to work back channel communications, and it didn't happen. And unfortunately, it just smacks of not having a plan. But we do have a plan here on the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
Barely.
We're going to take a break. We're going to talk Super Bowl up next. We got all kinds of Texas flavor headed to New Orleans in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about it next on Ultimate Dallas Sports Show.
Today's headlines, sponsored by your North Texas Chevy dealers.
Dallas will play in the Super Bowl. Well, Dallas Goedert, tight end with the Eagles. Philly defeated Washington 55-23 in the NFC title game today to punch their tickets to Super Bowl 59. And it will be a rematch against the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. KC beat the Bills again in the AFC title game 32-29. Mahomes and the Chiefs alive for a three-peat. The shrill voice of David Akers during the NFL draft all those years ago in Dallas still rings. Dallas Goedert back in the Super Bowl, Joe.
That was a very good attention-getting device right there. I like that. Well played by you.
Making sure you're paying attention.
Well played by you. Hey, let's talk about the Super Bowl. And listen, I'm curious, Michelle, because I really thought this might be the year that Josh Allen and the Bills could figure it out. Was there any point before or during that game that you thought it actually could happen?
I think I've watched Patrick Mahomes long enough to know better than to think that. And even if a little inkling came over me, he's done it too many times. Patrick Mahomes has done this too many times. I mean, he's 4-0 against the Bills in the postseason. And as hard as it is to watch Josh Allen on the sideline and see the overwhelming defeat set in, it's also hard to not think that Patrick Mahomes is going to get it done. And so to answer your question directly, I mean, no, it just seems inevitable at this point that Patrick Mahomes is going to beat the Bills en route to the Super Bowl in the postseason.
Listen, I thought that was some fantastic television, those shots of Josh Allen. I mean, you could just see, what do I have to do? And along those lines, I've got a crazy stat. Teams that have scored 4 or more touchdowns with 0 turnovers are 21-2 in the playoffs since 2020. The two teams that have lost, the Bills, both times against Patrick Mahomes. And Bob, this time was really interesting, right? Because it felt like from the very first snap of this game that Mahomes was in absolute control. There was no dancing of the feet. He just knew what he had to do. He knew how he had to do it. And it was a master class in how to make it back to a championship game.
Yeah, it's greatness, and I know people are now getting tired of the Chiefs because they're tired of the Chiefs. But I mean, when I see something that reminds me of like Jordan's Bulls, like I'm not sure how they're going to figure it out tonight, but they're definitely going to figure it out tonight. And we have pity for anyone else in the league that runs into this freight train because they're going to have a hard time ever achieving their dreams because this is standing in their way. We don't see it often in sports. Dynasties are rare, but this is like a super dynasty in the sense that, the second they start playing, you realize I should never have picked against the Chiefs, should I have? But I really felt great about the Bills this time, but I still knew you can't pick against the Chiefs.
So let's go into that real quick, though, because that's coming up here. We get one more chance to bet against them. Anyone taking the Eagles in the next game, Joe?
I am not.
Michelle, what do you think?
What I just said, absolutely not. I can't pick against Patrick.
Listen, they got the first chance for the first ever Super Bowl three-peat. although Andrew has an issue with that.
Semantics. We'll get into that later. We got time.
Oh, we're going to talk about that later?
Maybe.
Okay,
We'll
good.
see.
Because I think, Bob, you might have someone who's on your side in terms of that one. Listen, I think it's going to be another fantastic game. It's in New Orleans. And I just love the fact that we get to watch these Texas high school quarterbacks. We know the quality of, our football here in this state, and watching those two guys go at it again should be great stuff. All right, we got to take another timeout, but we got plenty more coming your way. In fact, it's true or false, and we are going to have some more apparent nods to the Super Bowl.
We'll see.
That's coming up next.
We'll see.
And now it's time for True False, sponsored by the Fort Worth Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. Since Michelle's here, no fence riding takes the week off. It's time to get to know Brian Schottenheimer a little bit better, though. So we play True or False around Shotty and the job he's inheriting. We'll do this a little bit differently. I want to hear each of your thought process with each guest here. All right, number one, Brian worked with his father Marty and his uncle Kurt Schottenheimer on the same staff while in Washington. How active have the Schottenheimers been, Joe? What do you think?
I know his dad coached there. I think he worked with his uncle, but I don't know if they were all on the same staff together.
Michelle?
I'm going to say false.
Michelle says?
I say false as well. I don't think Kurt was with them.
Okay. And
in Washington.
Bob, round us out here. What do you think?
I think it almost happened in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken. And that's actually why Marty lost the San Diego job, because he wanted to hire Kurt to be his DC, right? So I'm going to say false as well.
All right, here we go. The reveal is, it is true. 2001. All of you guys rationalize yourselves out of that one. I'm not even going to guess who the Washington quarterback was at the time, but Schottenheimer, Brian specifically, was the quarterback's head coach, while obviously his dad was the head coach, and Kurt was the defensive coordinator. Nice try, guys. All right, let's keep it moving here with the second statement. Brian was a career backup in college, but scored 2 touchdowns the year the Florida Gators won the national title in 1996. How much playing time do you think he got, Michelle?
I would say maybe we'll go 5 total minutes in that game.
Maybe.
And that feels like enough time to get 2 touchdowns.
Now, you said
true.
2 touchdowns in the national championship
No,
game?
not in the championship
Just in the
game,
whole season.
throughout the whole season.
Yeah, listen, there were a lot of blowouts.
Oh,
There were a lot of blowouts that year. Yeah. So
how badly did they beat the team in the national championship? No.
Yeah, so he certainly got some playing time. 2 touchdowns? Yeah, let's give him 2. I'm going to give him 2 touchdowns. I'm going to say true.
Bob, do you remember who the quarterback was for the Gators that year?
In 96?
Yeah.
That was
Is that Andrew Leak?
Nope.
No, that's before. Is that Ken
that
Dorsey?
Werfel?
That was Werfel.
Later
sorry.
played with the
Ken
New Orleans
Dorsey.
Saints.
No wonder Joe remembers it. Bob, what do you think here? True or false?
I'm going to say that is true. He was the backup, right? That's the true and false here. We got lost in the weeds there.
Scored 2 touchdowns the year the Gators won the title in 1996 as a backup.
Yeah, I'm going to say true. I'm going to believe.
Let us reveal it then. And it is, of course, true. He actually scored 3 career touchdowns. That year in 96, he scored 1 passing, 1 rushing. So he got it done on both sides of the ball. He knows what's up with the offense, clearly. All right, let's move on here. Third statement. Brian is only the 4th head coach the Cowboys have hired that didn't have a Super Bowl ring at the time they were hired. This includes as a player, coach, whatever. Bob, lead us off on this one. What do you think?
Let's see. Wow. So I'm going to say that's probably false, because I think the number would be below that. But thinking out loud is probably not great television. So I will just stick with false.
No, we like to think it out loud for this, Bob. We do.
Okay.
So
maybe it is great television. I'm sorry.
Landry didn't have a ring.
Nope.
Right.
Let's see. Jimmy didn't have a ring.
Nope.
Barry Switzer didn't have a ring.
Nope.
And I'm at 4. So it's true.
Michelle, what do you think? True or false?
I thought the only one that did when he came in was Parcells.
McCarthy.
Yeah, kind of some semantic argument there, but yeah.
So,
Well, and Garrett
Also-
would have had one.
Yeah, Garrett had one
Chan
from his
Gailey
playing days.
did.
Campbell would have.
I think we're
Did
all kind
not.
of settling around what Joe said, right? Which was true. Here is the answer. The answer is False. The one that Joe is misremembering is Chan Gailey.
I thought you meant 4 or more. At least 4.
Or 4 or more. Okay,
yes.
all right.
Yes. Problem with the question, you guys.
Can we, real quick, guys, go to the last one? It's not the 4th, it's the 5th one on this list, just to kind of get this in real quick.
Sure.
I know I'm kind of audibling here in the booth. Let's see if they can pull it up here with the 5th and final statement. At least we hope. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, they'll be the only second team in NFL history to win 3 straight titles. Bob, you probably know this one. Will they be the second team to do it?
They'll be the second team to do it, but the third time to do it because the other team's done it twice.
That is
Boom.
Absolutely correct. Because, again, the Packers did it for all intents and purposes in the Super Bowl era, except they didn't call the one in '65 a Super Bowl because they were still getting some details ironed out. The Packers also went through 3 straight NFC championships, NFL championships. I'm getting completely out of line here. Either way, the Packers did it twice, and the Chiefs are just trying to catch up. That's the main thing.
Michelle, Bob, thanks so much. Great stuff. We appreciate you guys being on the show tonight. We're back with the final word after this.